So, good morning, everyone. Today we will start with the topic basics of digital filtering. Okay. In this chapter, I will cover topics from the book Principles of Linear Systems and Signals by B.P. Lighty, and the second book is Biomedical Digital Signal Processing, C language examples and laboratory experiments for this for IBM R PC by Tompkins Willis J. Okay, so these two books are one of the good books to understand how the digital filters work. In our last chapter, we have talked about different transforms. So we have talked about transforms. In the transforms, we have talked about Fourier transform, first Fourier series, Fourier transform. Then we have talked about DTFT. Then we have talked about DFT. Under DFT, we have talked about FFT, right? Then we have talked about Laplace transform and then Z transform. Okay. So while discussing this, we have talked about the interrelationship. Now, while discussing about this basics of digital transform, we will mainly be discussing about the Z transform, and we will take some information from the Laplace transform, and we will see how the understanding of the Laplace transform, it helps us in understanding the designing of the digital filters, which is performed using the Z transform. Okay. We have previously discussed that suppose we want to measure a signal from a human body. Say a person is hospitalized and the doctors need to monitor his temperature at regular intervals. So what we can do, we can place a temperature sensor, be it thermistor, be it your other temperature sensors like thermocouple, whatever, onto the body of the patient. Usually thermistor is mainly used. So what you do, you place the sensor onto the human body. Then what you do, you have some analog signal processing circuits over there which will manipulate the signal. Then we will have an anti-aliasing filter. Post this one, we'll be having the analog to digital converter. Okay, and then it will go to the monitor or for the digital signal processing and all these things. Now this anti-aliasing filter and this analog to digital converter, quite often what happens is that this block, it itself is regarded as ADC, because this anti-aliasing filter, it helps us in band limiting the signal, and they are usually integrated with the ADC itself, with most of the ADCs which are available in the market. Okay, so what is happening over here? You are continuously taking the signal from the sensor, processing it, and then you are converting it into the digital signals. Okay, then you can store it digital devices. So in the digital devices, okay, you can just show the images in an what you call, in a monitor, and likewise you can print the data whatever you like. So in general terms we can talk about this, that these are digital devices. What is the second method? Second method is that there is a nurse who is having a thermometer and she is measuring the temperature of the patient at regular time intervals. So if you consider that the first one, the first case where we used thermistors for the measurement of the temperature, what we will get? We will get some variation in the amplitude. In this case, the amplitude would be the temperature, okay, and it will be measured across the time t. Then when you sample it, what do you do? At a particular instance, you start sampling. That becomes the 0th instance. Then after some time, you measure or you sample the signal again, say time index 1. So the delta t over here is 1. Similarly, we will measure the next amplitude after a delta t of 1, okay, and it goes on till you want to stop the process, okay. So this is called the discretization of the signal, and once the signal is discretized, then the amplitude levels or the amplitude values, they are being limited in the amplitude axis, which is regarded as quantization. So when we convert a signal from analog signal to the digital signal, first we do discretization. So we do the discretization of the signal. Second, we do quantization. Okay. So the signals now look something like this. Say A0, AT, A of 2t, A of 3t, where t is the sampling time period. Okay. So in this fashion it goes and it ends at time k. Okay. Now when we do this, what we get? We get a sequence of numbers. Okay. We get a sequence of numbers. So let us name this signal as Fn. So Fn equals to F0, Ft, F of 2t, F of kt, right? Now if I apply Z transform onto this signal, then we get capital F of Z, which is given by, see, F of 0 plus Ft Z inverse plus F of 2t Z to the power minus 2 plus dot 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 F kt multiplied by Z to the power minus k. So when we are talking about this F0, there is no Z term. Actually here also there is a Z term, and that is basically Z to the power minus of 0, which becomes 1, and hence we get the component as F0. Okay. So you can see, if we have a sequence of numbers or signals, discrete time signals, we can easily convert the signal into the Z transform domain just by applying a small trick. Now, if we want to generalize this equation, then we get f of z is equal to summation of n equals to 0 to k f of nt multiplied by z to the power minus n. Okay. Now, if you look over here, this is a limited case of Z transform. From our previous chapter, we know that Z transform, it is usually given by, for a signal xn, it is given by n equals to minus infinity to infinity x of n z to the power minus n. Okay. And this equation is regarded as bilateral Z transform. Okay. Now, if we change this n and replace it with n equals to 0, then this transform, when your n starts with 0 and it continues up to infinity, it is regarded as unilateral Z transform. Okay. Now, if you compare these two equations, you see here your k value, it is not tending to infinity. We are restricting the values. So while we will be designing the Z transforms, we have limited number of k values. So this Z transform which is used for the filter designing, it is basically the limited case of unilateral Z transform. In short, I am writing as uni. Okay. So this uni stands for unilateral. Okay. So unilateral Z transform. Okay. Now, if you look, if we generalize the system, say for a signal a of n, then we get this information: az equals to a0 plus at z inverse plus a of 2t z to the power minus 2 plus dot 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 plus kt z to the power minus k, and we get this equation. So what is the gain from here? As I already told you in the beginning, if we have a sequence of numbers, we can convert that sequence of number into an equation which gives us information about the signal in the Z domain, okay, which is a complex domain. Now there are various digital filter operators which are required when we try to design a filter. The first operator is Z inverse, which is regarded as delay. Okay, and this is one of the most important operator. Okay, what is its function? In our previous classes we have discussed suppose you are having a value at 0, say this is x0, we have another value at 1 time index 1 x of 1. Okay, so if we generalize the thing xn and I say that I want to delay the signal by 1 time index or 1 time period, this time period over here is the delta t, basically capital T. Okay, this sampling time period basically. So if I have this signal and I want to delay it, then what it would become? It would become x of n minus 1. Okay, so we are delaying the signal. So physically what would be the action on the signal front? The signal front would be the x0 will be placed at 1, x1 will be placed at 2, and so on. If I further delay this signal, then I would get x of n minus 2. So in this case, what would happen is that x0 will start at 2, then x1 will be at 3 time index, and so on. So you can see when we are delaying a signal, it is starting at a later stage. It is starting at a later stage. Now you would ask, so why this is needed? If you look into this equation, so what is happening over here? If you see, I have told Z inverse is a delay. If you see here, I am giving you a delay to the signal component. Okay, then in the next component it is Z to the power minus 2. So what is Z to the power minus 2? Z to the power minus 2 is given by Z to the power minus 1 multiplied by Z to the power minus 1. So there are 2 delays, right? Then similarly, if you go further, we will be having 3 delays. Okay, so how does this act? Suppose I am having a signal xn at this instance, I would get x0. Okay, say for example, I will just name it as A, B, something like this. Say I get a signal component A. So what is xn? Xn will just be given as the same value as A. Okay, whatever input you are giving, that output you are getting. Now you want to get the information about the previous instance. Okay, so what you will do, previous instance of what? Previous instance of the signal xn. So you will apply a signal, this thing. So say I get it as B. So what is B? B is basically the previous instance of A. So okay. So what I mean to say for example, if I take this signal A, this signal xn, initially at the first instance I will give an input of 1. So at A I will immediately get 1. Okay. Previous to this signal component, what is there? There is nothing. So the delay would have nothing in store, so it would give us a value of 0. Okay. When I go to the next instance, I am having 2. When I am having 2, at this output I will get 2. However, at B, what I will get? In the previous instance, what was there? 1 was there. So I will get this 1. So what this delay is doing? Whatever is the signal component, say I am working at x equal to 1, it will give us a value of x equals to 0. Okay. Am I clear? Any one of you have any problem over here? Because this forms the basis of the further discussions. No one? Okay, that's good. So this is the first operator, delay. So I hope every one of you have understood what it does. Next, the second operator is the multiplication operator. So over here we multiply with a constant. Okay. So herein what we do, we give a signal component, it gets multiplied with k and we get d, where d is given by c multiplied by k. Okay. Now why it is needed? So if you see over here, apart from delay we are having a multiplier. Here also apart from delay we are having a multiplier. Okay. Over here apart from the delay we have a multiplier component. Okay. So this multiplication component is needed to implement the digital filters. Okay. Lastly, if you see in this equation we have addition. So the last operator is an adder. So you have adder. So you have input of E, you have input of F, you get output of G, which is equals to E plus F. Okay. So this is how it proceeds. Now coming to the next important thing, what it says, it is important to realize that anti-aliasing cannot be accomplished with any digital filter except by raising the sampling rate to twice the highest frequency present. This is frequently not practical Therefore, most digital signal processors have an analog front-end anti-alias filter. In our previous class, we have talked about Nyquist rate. What does the Nyquist rate says? That the sampling frequency should be greater than equal to 2 of FM. Okay. So what is FM? FM is the maximum frequency component within a given signal. So that means, say for example, we have an ECG signal whose frequency varies from 0.05 Hertz to 100 Hertz, and in some books you may find it up to 120 Hertz, but 100 Hertz would contain all the frequency components of the ECG signal. Now, if I have to digitize this ECG signal, what we have to do? We have to sample this signal, and at what frequency we would be sampling the signal? The sampling frequency should be greater than equal to 2 multiplied by what is the maximum frequency component over here? 100. So 100. So your sampling frequency should be greater than equal to 200 Hertz if you want to digitize the ECG signals. Okay. Now what it says, it introduces an important word which is called aliasing. Okay. What is aliasing? Aliasing means disguise. Okay. So in movies and in the news channels you will hear about this alias. Okay, which is mainly associated with the criminals. So what happens? So in that case you will find in the movies that one person is having a number of passports having with different names. So those disguised identities, they are regarded as the alias. So he is present as alias in this name. Okay. So that means there is somewhere a disguising effect which is hidden into the signal component if we do not follow this Nyquist rate criteria. So what is that? Let us look into that action. Yeah. Suppose you have a signal component say I have a sinusoid component. Okay. Now I sample it once. Okay. So the next sample point would have been somewhere over here. Now if I try to join this, what would happen? I am getting a DC signal. Even though the signal over here is a sinusoidal signal, I am getting a DC signal. Okay. Similarly, instead of here, this full cycle, if I say start the what do you call start the sampling at this point, then I will be getting an impression that there is a DC signal in this way. Now the same DC signal would have been present if I would have started sampling at this point also. So you can see we are getting an altogether a different information about the signal if we are not sampling this signal at least twice, okay, or less than twice in one period of the sinusoid. Now next what? Next, suppose you have sampled over here, so in one cycle you have sampled at two places. So what would happen? Okay, you'll be getting something like this, but what happens over here? You at least get an information that there is an alternating information over here. Okay, this is not a perfect sinusoid, it is basically a triangular signal, but you get an information that there is an alternating signal over here. Okay, now next, if I increase this thing, so what will happen? Suppose I increase it to 4 times. Here, here, here and here. Okay. So again we can see there may be two possibilities, that from here it will reach a maximum and then come down, it will reach a minimum and then it will come up. There is another possibility that it will go up, then there is a plateau phase, then it comes down, there is a plateau phase, and so there are two possibilities. Let us take up the first possibility only. So it goes like this, it goes like this, and you are getting a complete information. Okay, but there is a chance that you may have some misinformation. For that, if I again increase the number of points over here and over here, then there is no question of misinformation. We know that the signal starts from 0, it achieves a middle point, from there it gets to a maximum point, from there it comes down to a minimum and middle point, then it crosses the 0, then it comes to a middle point in the negative half, then it reaches the this minimum, then it again rises to a middle point in the negative side, negative half, and then again it crosses the 0. So over here, if you see, when we are increasing the number of samples while representing a cycle, what we are doing, we are getting to an idealistic signal component. We are able to recreate the ideal signal component, which we were not able to do when the number of the samples were lower. Okay, so this phenomena where you can have a misinformation about a signal if you have not discretized the signal using sufficient points. It is called aliasing. Okay, and how you can prevent the aliasing? If we follow the Nyquist rate, then we will be able to prevent aliasing. So what is that? Fs is greater than equal to 2 of Fm. So we have to first find out what is the maximum frequency component of the signal. Okay. So how to ensure this? Because previously we have discussed in Fourier series that any analog signal, they consist of infinite number of sinusoids. Okay, so when you are having infinite number of sinusoids, the frequency of those sinusoids may vary from minus infinity to infinity. So you cannot do anything. So what to do? The best method is to band limit the signal, and since most of the biosignals, they have frequency components starting from near to 0, or you can see from the DC component, near to DC component to say 1.5 kilohertz, especially in the case of EMG signals. EMG signals are electromyogram, the electrical signals which are being generated from the muscles. Okay, so it is having the maximum number of maximum frequency component, which is 1.5 kilohertz. If you come to ECG, it is approximately the maximum frequency is 100 hertz. If you come to EOG, electrooculogram, which are associated with the movement of the eyes, it has maximum frequency component of 30 hertz. If you talk about EEG, electroencephalograms, which are also regarded as the brain signals, it has got frequency components up to say 30 hertz to 40 hertz. Okay, it depends depending upon which book you follow. In some book you will find 30 hertz, in some book you will find 40 hertz is there. So we will restrict ourselves to 40 hertz. So usually what we do, since most of our signal components are near to the DC component and it varies up to lower frequency range, so we apply a low pass filter. This low pass filter is an anti-aliasing filter. Okay. Now, before we move forward, we have to keep this in mind that the number of poles should be greater than the number of zeros in a reliable filter. Okay, so whenever we are designing a filter, we have to keep in mind that the number of poles should always be greater than the number of zeros. Okay. Now coming to the filter designing by placement of poles and zeros. Many of you must have studied Laplace transform, right? Anyone who has not studied Laplace transform at all? Anyone who has not studied Laplace transform? I'm not getting what you are saying. Anyway, we'll briefly discuss over here. So Laplace transform, when we talk about Laplace transform, we are talking about a complex plane. In this complex plane, the x-axis is the real axis and the y-axis is the imaginary axis. Okay, and this imaginary axis is basically the frequency axis. Okay, it is given by j omega, and this real component, it is sigma. Okay, now if you want to design any filter in this analog domain, we have to find the transfer function. Okay, now what is a transfer function? Many students, they have some what do you call, they do not have the idea what is a transfer function. So let us take an example. Say for example, I take a non-inverting amplifier. So what is the output over here? Output is V0 equals to 1 plus R2 by R1 into V1. Okay. Now if I just rearrange this equation, I get V0 by V1, and if I name this component as gain A, then this function, it is called transfer function. Okay, over here we are having all resistances, so everything are real components, hence we have got A. However, if we would have given some, say some inductor or resistor, not resistor, inductors or capacitors inside this circuit, what we are incorporating? We are incorporating some J components also, right? Which is a complex number. So we are going into the complex thing. Now this transfer function in the Laplace domain, it is represented with h of s. Okay. Now this h of s, it is given by P of s divided by Q of s. And what are these? H of s, it is basically a polynomial. Okay. P of s is a polynomial, Q of s is also a polynomial. So we all know the polynomials, they have some roots. Okay, they can have a number of roots. Okay, if the order of the polynomial is 2, we will get 2 roots of the polynomials. If the number of the order of the polynomial is 3, we will get 3 roots for the polynomial. Okay, so basically when we are talking about this transfer function, if you see over here, we are talking about 2 polynomials. Okay, one is PS, one is QS. Now if I break this down, I get into this region. Okay, this type of equation. So we are having number of roots and number in the numerator and number of roots in the denominator. Now if you see, if I take this root, then what will happen? So instead of this s minus z1, if I place z1, so what will happen? It will bring the hs down to 0. Similarly, if I put s equals to z2, it will put the HS into the, again put the HS down to 0, and so on. Similarly, if you see, if I put S equals to lambda 2, this denominator would become 0, then I would get an expression, some values by 0, which is infinity. Okay. So the roots of the numerator, they are bringing down the amplitude of HS to 0, hence the physical parameters or the virtual parameters which we use to bring down the amplitude of a filter down to 0 are regarded as zeros, and if we use some parameters which helps us in increasing the gain of the signal or gain of the filter, they are regarded as the poles. Okay, I hope till now I am clear to everyone, right? Okay, now let's see over here the vector representation of the complex number. I have a point Z, so what does it say? So here this Z is a vector. I have a point P, this P is a vector. Now if I have to find out the distance between P and Z, then P minus Z, it is a vector and it will give us information about the distance between the Z and the P. Similarly, this is just about a single point. Now if I have multiple points, say I have lambda 1, I have lambda 2, I have Z1, I have Z2. Okay. Lambda 1 and lambda 2, if you see in this equation, we are representing the position of the poles. So these are the position of the poles, and if you look carefully, the position of the pole is on the left hand side. Both the poles, they have been put on the left hand side. So this is the primary requirement while designing a filter in the Laplace domain. You have to keep all the poles in the left hand side. If you see Z1 and Z2, they are present both in the left hand side and the right hand side. That means zeros can be placed anywhere on the Laplace plane. And then we are telling that we are interested in the point P. Okay, we are interested in the point P. So we are finding out the distances between these two, say D1, D2, R1, R2. Okay, and also we are finding out the angle to this point P. So how to find out this angle? You have to draw a parallel line with that of the x-axis. See this one, and then you find out the angle between this parallel line and the resultant vector between the point P and the pole point or 0 point. You have to find out that angle. So that is your phase angle. If it is for a pole, it would be regarded as pole angle. If it is for a 0, it would be regarded as the 0 angle or 0 phase. Okay, phase of the zeros. Right. Now when we are talking about filter, we are basically interested in the frequency component, right? What we do in a filter, we apply low pass filter. Low pass filter means it allows low frequency components, right? If we talk about high pass filter, we are talking about high frequency components. Are you getting my point? So we are interested only in the frequency points when we are talking about the filters. So at the start of the topic, where did I say that frequency component is present? In the Laplace plane? The frequency plane is present on the imaginary axis. The frequency plane is present on the imaginary axis, j omega. Okay. So we have understood how to calculate the distance, we have understood how to calculate the phase, but we have taken a point P which was lying anywhere on the plane. So what you have to do, we have to get this point to the imaginary axis because we are just interested in the frequency component. Okay. So what will happen? If you see, if I calculate this D1 and D2 or R1 or R2 on this point, this thing, so what happens here? We have to calculate the distance of the poles and the zeros to a particular point P. Say here. So distance from lambda 1 to P is D1. Oh, sorry. Distance is D1 divided by D1 multiplied by D2, and for zeros it will be say R1 multiplied by R2, and if I want to give some gain, say Bn. So here we are only talking about the real component, that is basically the magnitude of Hs. Okay, so this is basically the magnitude of Hs. So if you say, sir, we have taken only one frequency point, you are correct. If you see, we have only discussing about Hs at s equals to P. Okay. Now the position of this P may vary. So the position of the P may vary from 0 and it will go on increasing in the frequency axis. So at each and every frequency axis, as we vary the point, if you see, if the point is here, the distance between lambda 1 to this point and lambda 2 to this point has completely changed. Similarly, the zero distance has also changed. Now if I just shift the P point over here, the distance will again change. So what do you get? So as you are moving across the frequency axis, if you are moving across the frequency axis, there would be some change in this amplitude values, which is basically your frequency response. Okay, which is basically your frequency response. Similarly, if you go for the phase angles, you will get the phase response of the filter. Now let us go to the next slide. So up to this, it must be clear to you. At particular point P, we are calculating all these things, right? Now we can represent the same equation which was in the rectangular coordinate into the polar coordinate, and we get this information. And you can see we have got this thing R1 multiplied by R2 multiplied by Rn in this fashion, which is the modulus of Hs. Similarly, if you look into e to the power j, we get phi 1 plus phi 2 plus phi n minus theta 1 plus theta 2 plus theta n. So what are these? What are phi's? Phi's are phase angles of the zeros minus the phase angles of the poles. Okay. So the phase response of the filter at a particular frequency point would be given by phi 1 plus phi 2 dot phi n minus theta 1 plus theta 2 dot theta n. Okay. So in this fashion it goes. So we have understood how the placement of poles and zeros can help us in finding out the filter response. Okay. So we have already completed our time. So I will stop over here.